Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing? How's your Monday turning out so far? Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you're all fit and well. I'm going to say a quick good morning to Alex Latham, to Dan Cullen, to Mark Whiting as well. I'm also going to say good morning to, over on Instagram, Andrew Bainbridge, Lisa Rawlings, and the Irish Digger Man. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Still some late arrivals to arrive, but not a problem. It is. Well, no, I'm not at that point yet. Ken Hatter has just arrived as well. Good morning, Ken. Let me press a button. It's not that one. It's that one. I've got two marked with a K, and yours isn't that one. Good morning, Ken. I hope you're fitting well, and looks like you've got weather. The Welsh weather. I don't know about you, but what a productive weekend that turned out to be. Our Halloween book, The Gravedigger, is just about complete. Morning, Mick, who's just joined us as well. I'm going to say good morning to him. Yes, our Gravedigger book is just about complete. And I'm now, I don't know what happened, well into a second new work of fiction as well. I'll tell you about that more in days to come. In addition to all that, we've really stepped things up on our audio podcast, and I'm now figuring out just how they're all going to fit into our content output, basically. We've been so productive, I'm not entirely sure where to go with it all, but that'll all become clear in the fullness of time. Good morning to Jim Turner as well. Now, on the subject of audio podcasts, I am planning to use them to produce regular episodes to keep you up to date with developments in the field of construction equipment in general. But we're also working on some standalone episodes that take a deeper dive into some very specific topics. We added a new episode today that charts the fall and eventual collapse of mega contractor ISG. If you'd like to listen to that, I do have the means at my disposal. If I go to there and press that button, I can tell you can listen to that right now. Now, lots and lots of ways to listen to this. The easy way is the way I've just suggested there. Go over to YouTube and have a listen. But they're available on all major podcast platforms and on Spotify as well. Good morning to Jim Turner and Steve Williamson as well, who have just joined us. I have buttons for both. Let me press both of those. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And just going back to the podcast, we've already got a couple of more episodes in the chamber and ready to fire. One on the 75th anniversary of the mighty Liebherr, and the other on the promise of hydrogen technology. That's in addition to an episode on the S standard of quick couplers and the Open S Alliance that dropped over the weekend. So once this show is over, if you're craving for more industry content to keep you company throughout your working day, we've got you covered. Just go to Spotify, go to iTunes, but wherever you get your podcasts, go search for Demolition News Radio, and you could literally listen all day. There's that much content there, so feel free to do that. But wait until the show's over. Now, without further ado, I'm going to roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get today's show on the road. It is Monday, the 7th of October. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, Shantui unveils a hot new excavator. Caterpillar looks at energy transfer. Manitou brings precision to mine handling. And Volvo's fluid analysis helps to keep the wheels turning. Plus, in today's episode of Mark's Morning Monologue, we're looking at the many implications of finding yourself out of work. We'll come to all of that in just a moment. But before we do all of that, we've got the small matter of today's mystery machine to solve. So we have an animation for that. It's still early in the month, but I'm going to give you a very quick update on the league standings as we stand at the moment. I can tell you that Dan Cullen, last month's champion and the champion the month before that, he's in the lead. He's on 6 points. I'm on 3. Alex Latham is on 3. Could today's Mystery Machine close the gap, or could it extend Dan Cullen's lead? We shall see, because that is what you need to identify. I think fairly obvious from the picture there what type of machine it is, but what I need is a make and a model, if you would be so kind. Is that a distinctive colour, or is that a fairly common colour? We shall see. We shall see. I'm going to take that away because I do need to also remind you of today's question of the day, which looks a little bit like this. Yeah, the smallest question of the day comes once again from our resident quizmaster, Mr. Gary Muirhead, who I haven't actually seen in the chat so far today. I know he's working in a fairly remote location at the moment, so maybe that explains it. But his question is here, even if he isn't. And his question is this: what do you wish you had more time to do? It's a great question. The older I get, the more I realise that time is our greatest asset, and that it's very, very finite. We only get so many hours in each day and so many days in each week. Juggling work and home life leaves very little room for anything else. To give you an example, it is now October, and I haven't actually managed to go fishing at all. Not once this year. Planned to, but never got around to it. Can't remember the last time I went a whole year without drowning a maggot or two. I don't know, when I was first married, around about 1990, I literally can't remember the last time I went that long. And I can assure you, it's not through lack of will, it's through lack of time. But what about you? What would you like more time to do? Something's just popped up into the comment. Let's have a look. This is a guess on our Mystery Machine. Jim Turner reckons it could be a Komatsu PC210. It is not one of those. But let me show you a smidge more. There you are. Dan Cullen reckons a JCB 48. Is there a machine called a JCB 48? Is there? Could well be. I can't keep abreast of all these things. Ken Hatcher reckons he would like to spend more time riding his bike. Been trying to get to for 30 years, but not yet got on. You've had a bike for 30 years and never got on it. Wow. And Jim Turner, I'm not surprised at Jim's answer on that. Work on my own projects. Yeah, listen. There's a little bit of me that hankers after buying myself an old van or horse box or something and doing a van conversion. I wouldn't particularly want to do the whole van life thing here in the UK because it's the weather's too horrible and the place is too small, basically. But there's a bit of me that would love to be able to set aside the time to go build myself a van conversion. Be handy for things like Hillhead, rather than trying to find myself digs or hotels or Airbnbs. Just take the van up there, park up in the car park, break out the barbecue, Bob's your uncle. Mick says, sitting by the Thames with a pint in my hand and hound laying at my feet in the sun. That sounds like a pretty damn splendid way to spend the day. Sitting by the Thames, even though the Thames, frankly, is not what it once was. I'm hoping that Thames will to get their, more than their wrist slapped. I'm hoping they get their arse slapped, actually, the way that they're abusing the Thames at the moment. But we shall see. Mark Whiting is going for Mystery Machine. He reckons it could be one of those. A Komatsu 88 MR. You're quite close there, actually, as it happens, Mark. Let me show you a smidge more. Not sure that helps at all. Dan Cullen is going for the Wacker Neuson EW65. It is definitely not one of those. Closest so far, Mark Whiting. Keep the guesses coming in if you would be so kind. Let me take that away because I do need to start the show proper. We've got all of the preamble out of the way, so let's crack on, shall we? Yeah, those fine folks. I say they're fine folks. I've never met them. No, I mean, I've bumped into a few of them at exhibitions, but I've never really had to sit down to speak to the folks at Shantui. But I'm sure they are pretty fine folks. But they've got a new excavator out, and rather than me talking about it, how about I just show it to you? Looks pretty good to me. What do you reckon? Is that hot or is that not? I'd love to hear from you. I wonder when we'll get Shantui machines over here. Only a matter of time, I'm sure. Going back to the mystery machine, we've had a couple of guesses along the same lines. Dan Cullen reckons it could be a Komatsu PC88MR-11. Very specific, close, but no cigar. Mark Whiting reckons our mystery machine could be a Komatsu 55MR. You're close, but I can tell you the champion of the first ever month of league table on the mystery machine has just come up with the right answer. Steve Williamson. There you are. That's what he says it is. A Komatsu 58MR. And just to prove to you that he's not barking mad, there you are. It is indeed the 58MR. So let me put an SW in the league table. Congratulations, Steve. Well done. That shakes things up just a little bit. Let's have a look what we've got here. Ken Hatcher, let me take that away because we've already resolved that. They launch them from China like their electric cars. Yeah, they do. There does seem to be an endless flow of new machines. I reckon I could probably feature XCMG twice a week if the fancy took me, purely because they launch machines with such regularity. Excuse me, tea's gone down the wrong hole. Mick says, I read on one of the blogs I'm on, construction very static at the moment, perhaps just the time of the year, or maybe something deeper coming. I think it rather depends on which stats you're reading. I know there's talk about September was a bit of an upturn and various other bits and pieces. But overall, I reckon it's been a very, very, very bad year. And I've mentioned ISG. There is a podcast available on it, which I can share with you once again as soon as I get to the right place. There you are. That is our podcast on the ISG collapse. Because what happened to ISG, frankly, there, but for the grace of God, goes most of the industry. Yes, there are question marks about how it was run. Yes, there are question marks about how they treated their subcontractors. There are also question marks about how they handled the potential sale at the last knockings of the company. But what brought ISG down could bring down any other company in the country. And bearing in mind, by turnover, ISG was the 6th biggest contractor in the UK construction industry, and they are now gone and goodbye. I was actually thinking that ISG, what could ISG stand for? He's so gone. He's saying goodbye. Add your own. But yeah, it is tough out there. Now, going back to the question of the day, which was, what would you like to do? How would you spend more money? Spend more money, spend more time. Steve says, spend more time with the family. Construction hours don't allow so much of it. No, they really don't. They really don't. And I do wonder, I don't see that improving. I think we've got ourselves, and listen, I'm equally guilty. I work on the very periphery of construction. But because I'm self-employed, I literally obviously worked all last week, but I worked on Saturday and I worked on Sunday as well. My choice-ish, because you kind of need to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. I did notice somebody this morning, I won't name names, boasting about the fact that a magazine had reproduced their press release word for word. We're not in that business. If that's what you're into, then fine, you go do that. But we try to add a bit of journalism, a bit of analysis to it all. So yeah, you kind of have to keep pushing. Steve Williams says, with a further update, construction in Highlands is absolutely booming. We're on a major port job for ships coming in with offshore windmills to be stored and whatever else they do. Whiskey warehouses are booming, cable jobs, housing, roundabouts on main roads, just crazy at the moment. Well, long may it continue. I know you'd like to spend more time with the new Mrs. Williamson, but long may it continue. Housing sites seem quiet in Wales. Yeah, unfortunately, Wales has been on the wrong end of it, I'm afraid. I did 30 days, 30 years, 7 days a week. I like 5 now. Yeah, that would be my preference. But I think part of the job is, or part of the problem, certainly for me, is the fact that I enjoy what I do. I'm, as I say, I'm playing around with audio podcasts at the moment and thoroughly enjoying them. I still prefer video, but to be able to put out something pretty in depth on something like the ISG collapse, the coming promise of hydrogen, the open SLIS and the S standard of quick couplers. What was the other one that we've done? I know there's another one that I thought was pretty worthwhile. Oh yeah, the 75th anniversary of Liebherr. Now, I mean, I wouldn't normally cover that in print per se, but I'm more than happy to devote a podcast to it. So if you'd like to listen to that, that will be coming very, very soon. Jim Turner says, we're still building, but I don't think they're selling. Yeah, and unfortunately, house builders are very, very adept at that. If they're not selling, they will sit on the site. You know, they will just shut up shop, let nature take its course, and then when the prices go back up and people start buying, they will jump back in again. And the shortage of ground workers and machines, which GPS is just non-existing. GPS machines now here just skyrocketed in just the past year. If you don't have it, you won't get a hire. And I think that will be more and more the case across the industry as a whole. Question of the day, going, what would you like to spend more time doing? Having more time with my dad and learning more from him when he was with us. Yeah, I feel your pain on that one, Dan. I've said this before, I mean, but I knew my dad was dying because he had COPD and cancer and various other bits and pieces. But because of the COPD, I mean, my inclination, because of what I do for a living, was to stick a microphone under his nose and just get him to talk about growing up, you know, in East London, and you know how he came to meet my mum and all the things that went with it, but he didn't have the breath for it, and I really regret that. You know, to be able to play that back to my children and my children's children, this is what your grandfather or great grandfather was really all about. I do regret that, so certainly feel your pain there, Dan. Before we get too maudlin today, shall we crack on, because we've got plenty to get through right after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
The overriding theme, or the overarching theme of Oman Expo a couple of weeks ago. Can't believe it's a couple of weeks ago already. But it was energy and all things energy related. Obviously, we are on the cusp of an energy transition. And right there at the forefront of it, no great surprise, Caterpillar.
When we talk about the challenges of the energy transition, many of us think about replacing diesel trucks with battery-powered solutions. But the problem to solve isn't the truck itself. It's about how to safely and efficiently transfer energy to that machine. With a battery electric truck, energy transfer can happen in 2 ways. Statically, like when a truck stops at a charging station, or dynamically, transferring energy to a machine while it's working around a mine site. Today, dynamic energy transfer exists with diesel electric haul trucks by using overhead trolley systems like this. But trolley systems come with their own set of challenges. Trolley can take months to install and can be difficult to move around as a mine plan changes over time. When a truck is attached to the trolley, the operator needs to maintain a precise connection to the overhead cables, making it difficult to navigate curves in the road. The height of a trolley's cables also determines which truck models can connect and how high those trucks can be loaded. The size of the cables also limits the amount of energy that can be transferred to a truck. With our customers in mind, our team of innovators are redefining what it will take to run an electrified mine site, designing a solution that's nimble, more modular, capable of providing energy to machines when they're on the go, and recharging batteries at the same time. Introducing our new CAT Dynamic Energy Transfer System. This design is focused on transferring energy safely at the lowest total cost and more. The side rail will allow for greater flexibility. The system can be installed on flat haul roads, on grade, and around curves, enabling higher productivity. The connecting arm can be installed on either side of the truck and on multiple truck models, so you have options to fit your operations. CAT DET will also work with diesel-electric models, providing immediate benefit to mine sites that want to lower their operating costs and emissions today, while providing flexibility for the future. No regrets. The system is also being designed to work with our command for hauling solution, merging together autonomy and electrification to provide a holistic site solution. On a mine site, we know every second, every kilowatt, and every ton matters, which is why you need a solution designed to maximize it all. At Caterpillar, we continue to invest in products, technology, and solutions designed to help you achieve your goals, no matter where you are on your journey.
Couple of questions. I'll do Jim Turner first. Steve, I will come back to you because it is a very important point. Jim Turner, going back to the current state of the UK construction nation, he says, I can see a lot of small house estates being applied for in the next couple of years. These 350 to £500,000 pads are going to be unsellable soon. I think you could well be right. Don't know what just happened. Our chat over on Instagram just went completely mental. Good morning to Garvin over at Mostly Diggers. So, Mine Expo. Was Mine Expo promoting electric in the US much? There's two answers to that. Mine Expo, for one thing, is a global show. I probably met as many Australians as I met Americans because, you know, mining and stuff. Lots of South Africans, lots of Canadians, and so on down the line. In answer to your first question, though, was it promoting electric? It wasn't even promoting electric. As far as the mining industry is concerned, electric is here. There is no argument. There's no discussion. There's no what if. Yes, you know, there were mentions of the promise of hydrogen, particularly at Komatsu, talking about their power agnostic dump truck, which can be battery electric. Well, it can be diesel, battery electric, trolley assist, or could be, at some point in the future, could be a hydrogen fuel cell as well. So, in answer to your question, electric was front and center. When you think about the four big stands there, Caterpillar had electric on it, Komatsu, lots of electric on it, Liebherr, lots of electric, round the corner, Hitachi, lots of electric. There was no argument about it. And he says, was it more electric than hydrogen? I think there is a sense of realism within the mining industry. I mean, even companies like Fortescue Mining, who are obviously in partnership with Liebherr to develop this T264 dump truck, I think there is an acceptance that hydrogen is coming, but that they're not waiting for that. They are, as far as they're concerned, they want to, well, reduce their environmental impact, but also reduce their energy costs as well. So they are acting right now. So as I say, the major mining companies and all of the major manufacturers are embracing electric now. And it really was a marked difference. When you think about construction and demolition, which is the bit that we talk about most often, it's still, well, electric's quite good, but what about this and what about that? Mining has just moved on. They've parked all of that and they are pressing on with it. And when you think about Fortescue Mining, going back to that, there is a podcast on this available if you'd like to listen to it. Fortescue Mining have signed up to 360 T264 dump trucks from Liebherr by 2030. Their entire haulage fleet basically will be all electric by 2030. And they're calling on the industry to say, don't wait. You don't have to wait. You don't have to have the discussion any longer. You could do this right here, right now. And I do find that quite frustrating. Steve, you've had this with GPS and quick couplers and all that kind of thing. In construction, we do have this nasty habit of seeing an innovation and trying to find reasons not to adopt. The mining industry is the other way around. Give me an innovation and I will run with it. And I have to say, my lasting impression of the whole of the Mine Expo show was precisely that, the fact that, and I realise they're working with bigger budgets. I realise they're also working in fixed locations, so installing battery electric technology and the charging infrastructure that goes with it. I understand all of that. but they have gone past. They have gone past the argument and the discussion. They are cracking on. Simple as that. I did say electric will take over rather than hydrogen. By the time hydrogen comes, it may be too late. As soon as much will be invested in the electric, there is no excuse anymore, to be perfectly honest. Particularly, if you're talking about mini excavators up to, minis into middies up to maybe 20 tons, you could go electric today. And I think the biggest difference between construction and, as I say, the mining industry has just gone, yes, we will do that. Whereas in construction, we're still, but what about charging? But what about batteries? But what about the mining has just said, no, we want sustainability and we are embracing it. Dan Cullen says, I often wonder, how does this help to buy work? Would they not be better to do a rent to buy example, deposit 20 grand and then £500 a month afterwards? As many people can't get a mortgage to get on this housing ladder market if they have the incentive to get people involved. Yeah, well, I mean, I've got a couple of my kids are struggling with that very thing at the moment. I mean, I think I bought my first house with about 15 grand's worth of deposit. My kids need about 100 grand at the moment, which is just crazy. No, it won't. The standards of construction skills have been sliding in the last 25 years. We need more apprenticeships, more mentoring, more drug and alcohol testing, more joined up thinking between schools and the construction industry so we get a future workforce that actually has a genuine interest in the job they're doing. And that's me up on my soapbox. Oh, the problem is, though, Jim, I think if you're at the sharp end, if you're actually at the coalface, I think you can see that. I think one of my concerns with all of this is the fact that so much of what drives the UK construction industry and the demolition industry, that's equally bad, is the fact that all of that takes place from an ivory tower. We will pass this new regulation, or we'll pass this new guidance, or we'll adopt this new initiative or campaign. You're not in the real world, people. And the more you look at, I mean, that was one of the other points. As Steve missed a few shows last week, I will go back on this. I'll come to his point in just a moment, but he was talking about electric and hydrogen and everything else. The other thing that mining has basically leapt in with both feet is autonomy. There's a very good Komatsu presentation. I'm still trying to get hold of it so I can show it to you. But the Komatsu presentation was talking about the fact that around the world there have been dozens, if not hundreds, of mines that have closed in recent years because they couldn't find enough people with sufficient skills and local people with sufficient skills to keep the mines open. People don't want to work in mines. It is tough work. It is hard work. And they can't find enough people. So mines had closed. Those mines are now being revisited with autonomy to the fore. Here in construction, we have exactly the same issue. We have a skill shortage, which Jim has just highlighted, a major skill shortage. We have serious concerns about whether we can maintain our workload levels into the future, but we're still autonomous. It'll take people's jobs. We're not filling those jobs. And if we want roads that stay open and are decent to drive on, if we want hospitals and if we want schools and universities and museums and libraries, if we want houses, unless there is a major revolution and we can get people through the door to start embracing construction as a way forward, the only other alternative is to hand it over to the machines. There's a story coming about that. I'll bore you with that at some point. Steve says, get on with it. Same with GPS, tilt rotators, electric, and so on. If you sit and moan about that, you'll be left behind. I always say about social media, they mouth it off until their boss gets the modern equipment, then it's the best thing ever. The trouble is, I think, with electric and hydrogen and autonomy and everything else, it is the bosses that are the problem. And let's be absolutely clear here. I always make this point whenever I talk about autonomy. I'm speaking right here to an audience of people that are working in construction. I want them to have a job for the next 10, 20, 30 years as their needs dictate. I genuinely do. But if we can't maintain, I mean, we've already got a road network that's pretty damn poor. We have a major shortfall in our house building program. If we can't do that with humans, then machines are the way. And it kind of bypasses the whole argument about taking people's jobs. If there aren't enough people to do the jobs, then we're not actually taking those jobs. We're just doing it in a different way. And as I say, with mines, they have looked at it and just said, it's safer, it's more productive. Why not? Why not just go fully autonomous? And when you look at, all of the major manufacturers, Komatsu, Caterpillar, Liebherr and Hitachi, all talking about autonomy, all got autonomous solutions, and all of them have moved billions, and I do mean absolutely billions of tons of material without a single incident, without any sick time, without any holiday, without cigarette breaks, without lunch breaks. Those machines just start and they go and they go and they go and they go. It's getting harder and harder to speak for the human alternative. It really is, particularly in mining. If we fail to adapt, we will fail to move forward. Dead right. Dan Cullen says, but the skill shortage, we don't train and pass knowledge on to the younger generation as they'd rather be on a computer all day. Let them. Let them. Maybe that's the solution. Rather than teaching them to go and drive a machine on site, in the mud, in the pissing rain, in the snow, in the cold, teach them to drive it from a simulator. As I mentioned, let me think, Caterpillar, Komatsu, and Liebherr all had, I'm saying simulators as if they simulate the operation. That's not true. They were actually doing teleoperation. I mean, the Liebherr one I remember best because I watched the presentation on it. They had the controls. There was a guy sat on the Liebherr stand in Las Vegas, Nevada, and he was operating a dozer in Austria perfectly well. Now, if you can't find people, let's say somewhere in the middle of Africa, you can't find people of the right caliber to operate the machines to make a mine work, either put in autonomous machines or give it to somebody that does know what they're doing in a different country and keep that mine turning. Because ultimately, we still need the metals and the minerals that mining produces. It's exactly the same as the house building sector. Come what may, we still need more and more and more houses. Unless there is some curb put on reproduction, which I don't think is likely to happen, we will need more and more and more houses. And if we can't find people to build them, let's look to machines to build them. Steve says the ones that are on computers will take over from the old school ways, and everyone that doesn't embrace them now will be sitting at home while the young ones are taking over. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I had a conversation about this. I was a guest on a podcast with a guy from Canada Thursday last week, and we were talking about precisely the same thing. All of this is old school. All that we're talking about here is old school. And you remember, you go back maybe 5-10 years, we used to look at our children, and mine are a bit older, but going back a little bit further than that, don't waste all your time on a PlayStation. That'll lead to nothing. There are people making millions playing PlayStation. There are people that are earning a very good living by sitting at a computer in their back bedroom doing what it is they do. There really is. Some can hate, but what I say, but it's fact. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Jim Turner says kids won't want to be what they can't see. There's plenty of practical people in the world. They just aren't getting the chance to realise it anymore. But are there enough practical people in the world? Goes back to, I will get back to the show in a moment, but goes back to the thing that I mentioned a while back. We have kind of bred out practicality to a degree. The point that I made maybe a year ago was the fact that we don't, I can't remember the term that I used, we don't tinker anymore. When I was a kid, Sunday afternoon, all of the dads in my block were out fixing cars, changing spark plugs, topping up the oil and stuff like that. Who the fuck does that anymore? Who does that? And yes, there are people out there, I mean, Jim being one of them, there are people out there that are very, very hands-on. But when you look at cars, when you look at your washing machine, when you look at your dishwasher, when you look at your excavator, increasingly they have been built to ensure that you don't fix it yourself, that you get a technician to do it. Now, you can take that either way. You could either take that as, I miss tinkering, I miss getting the screwdriver out and playing, or you could just think, well, leave it to the experts, I'll go and do something else. Kind of goes back to our question of the day. Would I rather spend my weekend trying to fix a dishwasher that I don't fully understand? Or would I rather go and do something else? Pay somebody else to do it. That's the point I'm making. Mick Norton is here. Good morning, Mick. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Steve says, while they take on an operator with 10 years excavator experience, will take on someone with only 5 years experience, but with GPS, I know who they will want. Yep, the day is coming. Dan Cullen says, taking people jobs are, a lot of people complain about foreign national taking our jobs. Well, I said to a guy before, at least they're willing to work, not like the local chav, make excuses not to work, stay on benefits, have more chav kids that are going to follow their parents. Laziness. Yes, some people can't work, but if you're physically fit to go out to work, to walk to the pub on payday, then go to work. I actually agree with that. No one tinkers. I used to love being hands-on in everything. Yeah, but when you think about it, I mean, not so much. Well, no, it is my wife's car. My wife's car is semi-hybrid. Now, you know, I can top up the water, I can top up the oil, and I can check what the oil level is and stuff like that. But there's great swathes of what's under her bonnet. Complete mystery. I haven't got a fucking clue. I mean, there's literally lumps of that engine. I'm looking at it and thinking, I don't even know what that bit does. Now, you know, there are pros and cons. You know, would I rather hand that to somebody that knows what they're doing? Yes, I would, but I'm paying through the nose as a result. KGN Demolition just joined us over on Instagram. Mick says, simulators, is that the way? I still remember the inquiry to the plane in the Hudson. 12 or 14 pilots on a simulator said it did not lead to land in the river, but the pilot proved correct. Simulators may be okay, but a computer will only put out what is put in. Couple of things on that. You're right. I remember having this discussion with a former NFDC president for rather too short a time, in my personal opinion, but that's a whole other story. The NFDC had bought a high-reach simulator to teach operators how to operate a high-reach before they actually got on a high-reach. All valid. The point that this guy was making was, unlike if you're operating a high-reach in real life and something goes wrong, people die. On a simulator, you just press the restart button and you start over. It's a valid point. But what we're talking about here is not a simulator in the truest sense. What we're talking about here is a remote operating station. So what you're doing happens in real life. I didn't get a chance to drive the one over in Vegas, but I did drive one. I drove one here in Birmingham. I was driving a Caterpillar machine, Caterpillar dozer it was in Arizona. So I was here in the UK, and that was 5,000-6,000 miles away. And I did. I'm sure I've mentioned this before. I asked the question, how quickly does that respond? And he said, well, that button there turns on the lights. And I pressed the button and the lights came on in Arizona, and it was that long. It's instantaneous. So what we're talking about here is not a simulator. We're talking about a genuine operator who just happens to be somewhere else, 100 miles, 1,000 miles, 5,000 miles down the road, rather than actually on the machine. Jim Turner, as for the housing shortage, a modular revolution to the mass housing market will sort this problem out, give society a chance to be more a genuine community again. People won't need to keep moving house anymore. Wouldn't that be nice? When you think about that from a practical standpoint, we have built a lot of houses, mine not so much, but certainly previous houses. They're all crushed in together. You've got a tiny little postage stamp as a garden, and you've got you may live in a detached house, but the house that you're detached from is about 3 foot away. If you could go modular, do you think about that my son moved out maybe 2 months ago. He's living with his girlfriend at the moment. I would imagine that at some point in the future, there will be children involved. Imagine taking that house that he's in at the moment and just putting on another bedroom, just, drop in an additional bedroom. And then maybe another child comes along, drop in one on top of it. Makes perfect sense to me. Mick says, oh no, we've done that one. Mick says, been here before, mate. Your eyes see more than you see on a screen. There is that. No, there is that. And I do take that on board. I think that's where mining and quarrying has a slight advantage, well, a major advantage over things like demolition and construction, because mines and quarries, A, tend to be in the middle of nowhere, and B, there's not people roaming about. So, you know, you've got a 180-degree vision in front of you, but you've also got sort of reversing cameras and stuff like that, so you can see exactly what's going on. But I do take your point. Jim Turner says practicality is a skill that can be honed, just like being an artist or musician. Just needs harnessing and mentorship. Plenty of folk find out in their older life they have an artistic or musical skill. Just the same in construction, but academics teach academic things, so kids don't get a chance to try. All true. I'm yet to discover my artistic or musical skill, though. Just how much older do I need to be before that kicks in? Still waiting. Right, okay, I'm going to get back to the show because we've gone down a bit of a side path. Back in a moment. Dan Cullens just leaving us, back cutting blocks for paving. Great show, Mark. Thank you very much indeed, Dan. Have a good day, my friend. No good to me, Jim. Going a bit mutton. Yeah, mutton, Jeff. The old eyes need a bloody telescope. Yes, I'm very aware of that. Mick says, need a longer show, Mark, so we can all rattle cages. Listen, I'll run as long as you wish. Steve Williamson says, we can all comment on it, but none of us have used a sim. Not the ones you see trainers using. The sims how they have for real life are in a different league. They really are. They really are. I don't know if I've got some footage of it. Can't remember if I shot it or not, but the Leap Air one, the operator station was a fully equipped cab without a cab. So all your pedals and your levers and your joysticks and everything, all your buttons are exactly where they need to be. Your seat has, your seat and your joysticks, you have like haptic control, so you get the feedback coming from the machine, so you actually feel what's going on. That idea of, loss of sense of feel, all of that is academic because that can be replicated as well. They really are a different thing entirely. And bearing in mind, I'm a complete and utter novice. I mean, I think I've moved a dozer sort of forward 20 meters and backwards 20 meters in my entire life. But to get behind the controls of, I think it was a D8, I was in Birmingham in the UK, not the one in Alabama. I was here in the UK and I was operating one in Arizona. And it just felt absolutely natural. Absolutely natural. Been on a Challenger sim, Steve, scared the bloody life out of me. Your skill is in the written and now spoken word, Mark. We should all play to our strengths. It's having the chance to realise our strengths that matter. That takes exposure to situations and having a go. I certainly agree with that. I'm not going to dwell on it because you'll see the fruits of my labours in the very near future. But having spoken to Gary Muirhead about doing something for Halloween, I've written this Gravedigger. It's a mini book. It's about a half-hour audio book, if you like. Came off the back of that, and I was literally just, I'll put the thing in. Oh, I've got another idea, and I'm halfway through writing that as well. So yes, spoken and written word is very much my thing. Now, going back to all things mining, not the name that you would normally associate with all things mining, but Manitou have a presence. Take a look. have to say, that looks pretty impressive. No idea how you control it, but it looks pretty damn special. That Mick says, here we go again. You sound like Jeffrey Archer with the plugs. Yeah, my apologies. I need to stop plugging, don't I? Smart Attachment says, Steve, yeah, absolutely. There are some attachments, though, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. It's that thing, isn't it? There's so much shit going on. I'm not entirely sure I'd know where it's like trying to operate two computer keyboards at the same time, which I have done very, very badly. We've got one more film to show you, and then we've got my morning monologue, which is kind of about employment or the lack thereof. So back after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Continuing our discussion about all things autonomous. In Australia, the biggest autonomous dozer, this is from Mick Norton obviously, biggest autonomous dozer operation in the world sees 2 XD11 operators behind laptops controlling 6 Cat D11s, stripping overburden 22 hours a day to get at the huge coal seams. The seasoned operators claim depth perception is the only struggle. There you are. Biggest in the world. Stephen Edwards. What a pit! Before I even read any further, Stephen Edwards, your first sentence I agree with wholeheartedly. What a pity I only read objections to progress. In the 1930s, people thought a lift could not be autonomous, yet it had existed for many years. And now we know better than that lifts are autonomous. Stop resisting, jettison objections, and start thinking along embracing developments. Stephen Edwards, I tip my hat to you. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know. I'm kind of concerned that this is a British thing. In much the same way that the Brits love to build up a celebrity so they get the opportunity to knock them down again. The British default to innovation, bearing in mind what an innovative little country we used to be in so many different ways. The default in the UK now is something new. That'll never work. Not in my life. The internet. I will tell you this. I worked for a publishing company, and I started to do video purely because I enjoyed it. And I said, video is the way forward. Website publishing is the way forward. And I was actually told by a senior executive at a major publishing company, the internet is a fad. It will never catch on. Yeah. This is early 1990s. The guy was on 100 grand a year plus. He knew squat. And but again, we're really, really, really good at throwing obstacles in the way, and I don't know why we do it. I'm not going to give too many secrets away, but one of the reasons that we're doing more audio podcasts now, I found a different way of doing it, and literally spent the entire week. Oh, how does this? How do I use it? Well, let's do it. Let's press the button. Make it happen. I don't understand that. Oh, there's a new innovation. Why don't I like it? It makes no sense to me. Mick says, good attachment, but look at the tree fellows with their stuff. Bloody hell, they'll get one that not only cuts down the trees, but strip it to length. Next, they'll be cutting into planks as well. Yeah, the forestry industry does some really sexy stuff. In particular, there's, what are they? I'm not entirely sure what they call it. Is it a logger or something like that? But they've got one that is self-leveling. Now, we've got self-leveling on Wacker, do a self-leveling mini excavator where kind of above the slew ring, there is a joint. So if the machine is pitched over, the cab can be straightened, and as a result, you're digging straight and everything else. But you look at what they're doing in forestry, unbelievable. I mean, these things work at not quite that angle, but you get the idea. Yeah, okay, we've caught up with the chat. So, talking about Mine Expo, this has nothing to do with mining particularly, but I'll go back to that. Mine Expo, all the major manufacturers have got an electric solution. All the major manufacturers have got an autonomous solution. All of them are looking at hydrogen. The other thing they've all got in common is their embracing of fuel and or oil analysis to keep the machines turning. Volvo being among them.
Up to 75% of repair cost and machine downtime can be traced to contamination in the fluids. Fluid analysis gives you information about the component health in your machine and equips you with the needed information to take preventive actions. It's often compared to a human blood test. So how does fluid analysis work? Our streamlined and highly accurate analysis encompasses fluids, diesel fuels, AdBlue and coolants. The bottles are labeled with the date, machine model, serial number, and the component that the sample was taken from, and then they are sent to the laboratory for analysis. The diagnosis uses artificial intelligence, takes maximum of 48 hours. Based on the analysis, a report is generated, and it shows detailed recommendations in terms of preventive repair and maintenance actions on your machine, all to prevent downtime. So do you know the component health in your machines? Routine fluid analysis is proven to reduce downtime. So why wait? Contact your local dealer today to find more about fluid analysis.
Well done, Jim Turner, on the joke there. How many fellas? Yes, tree fellas. Isn't that the old Irish joke? They need tree fellas. Oh, that's a shame there's only two of us. Yes, I remember that well. Mick Norton. See, this is the kind of thing this is the kind of knowledge that needs to be passed down. I lived and worked through the sector's reluctance to change when we gradually moved from rope-operated to hydraulic arms. The defaulters were proved wrong then, as they will be in 2024, with GPS and autonomous production being the future. We have precedent. We do have precedent. You know, all of these, I mean, going back to my side of the business, you know, the publishing industry, newspapers will never die. Well, they bleating are. Magazines will never die. Well, they kind of have. Music, no, people will always buy records. Will they? Will they? I haven't bought a record in bloody years. Still listen to a lot of music. Yeah, it's just failure to move with the times. So, we're going to be kind of the same sort of tack. I'm going to roll the end of show stinger in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, then please do stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very, very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll be back with my morning monologue immediately when I find the right button. Immediately after this. Yeah, despite all I said earlier about a lack of time, I did find the time this past weekend to start work on another work of fiction. This one is going to be about the switch to autonomous machine operation and the impact that might have upon one man who has spent his entire working life on demolition and construction. That work of fiction, which is still being written, is the inspiration for today's monologue, which goes a little something like this. There's a unique kind of weight that comes with waking up and realizing you have nowhere to be. No routine, no tasks waiting for you, no purpose pulling you out of bed. Whether we realize it or not, work often defines us in ways we can't fully understand until it's gone. It's not just the paycheck, it's much deeper than that. When someone loses their job or retires, the initial thought is usually about finances, and that's a real concern, but it's only a piece of the puzzle. Losing work means losing structure, means losing a sense of belonging, a sense of identity, and a sense of purpose. That impact touches all aspects of life, social, mental, and financial. Work provides a social framework that many people rely upon. It's easy to underestimate how much of our social life revolves around the workplace. It's not just the formal interactions with colleagues, but the casual banter, the shared frustrations, and the small moments of connection that happen during the day. Over time, these interactions become the foundation of a social network. Without work, that network begins to fray. The routine of seeing people every day is suddenly gone. There are no more daily conversations, no more shared experiences to bond over. And for those whose social lives are deeply tied to their jobs, the absence of those interactions can lead to feelings of isolation. You're not just out of a job, you're out of a social loop, and that can be incredibly lonely. Many people also gain a sense of validation and self-worth through work. Being part of a team, contributing to a larger goal, and having a role to play in society provides a sense of belonging. Without that, it's easy to feel like you no longer have a place in the world. You become invisible. The world continues to spin, people go about their business, and you're left standing still, unsure of how to fit in. We often talk about the mental health impact of working in demolition and construction, but the mental toll of having no work to go to is perhaps even more profound. Work gives us structure, a rhythm to our days. There's a clear division between work time and personal time, and that creates a sense of balance. But when that structure disappears, the days begin to blur. Morning, afternoon, evening, they all start to feel the same. The lack of schedule can lead to a deep sense of aimlessness, even despair. Work provides a sense of accomplishment. There's something satisfying about completing tasks, hitting milestones and achieving goals. It's a boost to our self-esteem, a reminder that we're capable and productive. Without that, people can start to feel worthless. The feeling of being productive is a crucial part of mental well-being, and when that's taken away, it can lead to anxiety, depression, and a loss of self-confidence. The mind starts to wander into potentially dangerous territory. Questions about self-worth, purpose, and identity arise. Who are you without your work? What do you have to contribute if you're not part of the workforce? These existential questions can be difficult to face, and without the distraction or purpose that work provides, they often become overwhelming. Of course, the financial implications of losing work are significant. For most, work isn't just a passion, it's a necessity. It's a source of income that keeps a roof over your head, food on the table, and the bills paid. Losing that source of income means having to take difficult choices. At first, the cuts might be minor. Cancel a subscription here, skip a meal out there. But as time goes on, the cuts become more severe. Savings, if there were any to begin with, start to dwindle. The financial security that work provided is replaced by a constant anxiety about money. Every expense becomes a reminder of the precariousness of your situation. Things you once took for granted, like driving a car, buying new clothes, become luxuries you can no longer afford. Beyond the day-to-day expenses, there's longer-term worry about financial stability. Will you be able to find work again? Will you be able to support your family? The stress of these questions can take a heavy toll, leading to sleepless nights and constant worry. And for those without a safety net, the situation can quickly spiral into a financial crisis. At the heart of all these impacts, social, mental, and financial, is the loss of identity and purpose. For many, work is more than just a job. It's actually who they are. It gives them a sense of direction, a reason to wake up in the morning. Without it, they feel lost. There's a void that can't be easily filled with hobbies or leisure activities because it's not just about staying busy. It's about meaning. The loss of purpose is one of the hardest things to cope with. Humans are wired to seek meaning in their actions, and work often provides that meaning. Whether it's building something, solving problems, or helping others, work gives people a sense of contribution. When that's taken away, it can lead to a deep sense of purposelessness. Days begin to feel empty, and life itself can start to lose its flavour. In today's world where technology and automation are making more jobs obsolete, this is becoming an increasingly common experience. People who've worked for decades find themselves suddenly replaced by machines or algorithms. It's not just about losing a paycheck, it's about being told in a very real way that your skills, your experience, and your contribution are no longer needed. The impact of having no work to go to is far-reaching. It affects every aspect of a person's life, socially, mentally, and financially. It's not just about the loss of income, but the loss of purpose, identity, and belonging. It's about feeling disconnected from society, questioning your value, and facing an uncertain future. While work can sometimes feel like a burden when we have it, its absence reveals just how integral it is to our sense of self and our place in the world. And just one final point on all of this. I haven't had a chance to read the industry's news headlines this morning, but the chances are at least one of the industry publications today will carry a story about a demolition or a construction company going under. All that I've said about a loss of purpose, identity, there are hundreds and possibly thousands out there right now coming to terms with precisely that. And we've already touched on autonomous machines. That is the potential backlash from all of that. So what do you make of all of that? Let's go over to the chat, see what you're all saying. Mick says, I prefer the sound from vinyl. So do I. They're just going back to vinyl and music and stuff like that. I own albums and singles from back in the day, and they have scratches and pops and whistles and God alone knows what else. In my head, that's how that song is supposed to sound. I've one of my personal favourites of favourite songs of the 80s was a song called Duel, D-U-E-L, Duel, by a band called Propaganda. Doesn't matter whether you've heard it or not, but my copy of it has long since got a scratch on the vinyl. And now when I hear it on the radio and that scratch doesn't happen, sounds weird. Sounds really weird. Jim Turner says the difference was none of that change wasn't forced. It came organically, and that means the machines were fit for purpose, got bought. The ones that didn't fell by the wayside. The operators slowly crossed over, adapted, or eventually died out. Nowadays, a lot of change feels to be forced. But I think it's being forced in some instances, it's being forced for all the right reasons. Because, a lot of the change that we're facing now, particularly in terms of future fuels, is being driven by sustainability. We are staring down the barrel of, I think we're already in the midst of an environmental crisis. And if the choice is stick with what we're doing and all drown while the Thames rises and buries us all, or adopt electric, I'm going electric. Jim says, a bit like the electric revolution, if they'd first gone down the hybrid diesel battery route, they'd have converted the naysayers much more easily and quickly. But infrastructure is the issue. I mean, battery electric, not so much. I mean, that is doable, although I think it's going to get better and better and better as those things evolve. But hydrogen, if you decided to go with hydrogen today, and admirable if you do, if you decide to go with hydrogen today, where are you going to get it? How much is it going to cost you? And one of the things I learned while producing the podcast that we've got coming up on all things hydrogen is the fact that hydrogen doesn't compress in the same way or to the degree that diesel can. So storage of hydrogen, if it's possible, when it's possible, it will require bigger storage tanks than diesel. Little things like that. It's not the final solution. Mick says, true words, mate. At least I got a good few older demo men I can sit and have the crack with, but we're getting a bit thin on the ground, a bit like the hair on our heads. I feel your pain on both of those aspects. It is. I realise this is a very American term. That what they refer to as a water cooler moment, where you all meet at the water cooler, grab yourself a quick drink of water, but while you're doing that, you're chewing the fat about what was on the TV last night. How your football team did over the weekend. West Ham won 4-1, by the way, but that's a whole other story. And those interactions. I mean, I am largely bereft of friends. Hard though that is to imagine, not. But outside of actual work, I have friends within the industry and people I speak to on a regular basis. But outside of that, I mean, most of the male friends that I spend most time with now are actually the husbands of my wife's friends. They're not mine. I like them. I get on perfectly well with them, but they're not my friends. If you took my work away, I'd probably not speak to people for days and possibly even weeks at an end. It's a sad old state of affairs, isn't it? Jamie Forshaw just joined us over on Instagram, as did Jules Dempsey. Good morning to you. Jim Turner, work is life. Yeah, I try to deny that. So, very, very quickly, I did a school reunion maybe 10 years ago. And one of the things that I found most enjoyable about meeting up with old school friends was they didn't give a toss what I do for a living. They didn't care what house I lived in, what car I drove. They just knew me as, that Herbert on the council estate that went to school with them. And I preferred that. I do think that was a marvellous thing. But the older I've got, the more you do realise that you are largely defined, not just by others, but by yourself. If somebody says, "What do you do?" Well, I could say, well, I'm a husband, I'm a 4-time father, I'm a 3-time grandfather. You don't. I say I'm a journalist, I'm a writer, I'm a live streamer, or whatever it might be. You are absolutely defined by work. Machines are my work, my interest, and my hobby. The best workers are the ones with genuine interest in what they do. When it's more than just a job, the quality and dedication comes easily, says Jim, and I agree entirely. Mick says, autonomous machine operation will be forced on a lackluster sector that has consistently failed to address the skill shortage. There is, when, and again, I don't want to plug the thing that I haven't finished writing yet, but the new work of fiction is about somebody that has been rendered redundant by autonomous machines. If and when that does happen, the industry as a whole will have no one to blame but itself. Our consistent and long-term failure to either attract young people into the industry, or to reach out to schools and colleges, or to reach out to allied industries, or not even fully allied industries, to get people from one walk of life. I mean, bearing in mind, we've watched the demise of the British car industry, the British steel industry, the British coal industry. All of those people within those sectors were very hands-on, very technical, very practical, very methodical. Where was our outreach? When a steelworks collapsed or closed, why were construction and demolition companies not running to their front door and saying, "Come over here, we've got work for you. We will train you, we will bring you on up to speed, but your level of practicality and experience will be invaluable to us"? We don't do that. We basically sit back and hope and pray that the CITB will wave a magic wand, and our skill shortage, which has been in existence for 35 years, that I can personally attest to, that will miraculously go away. Nobody's to blame but ourselves. Gary Muirhead, better late than never, says, "Good morning, Mark. Good morning, everyone. Happy birthday to Lou Carney." I haven't spotted that, but thank you for that, Gary. I'm not sure if Lou's watching or listening, but many happy returns, Lou. Mick says, "We desperately need to deliver highly skilled workforces for the long term and grow the economy." See, there is another issue. Growing the economy. The way and I'm going to use this in a very, very simplistic manner. You go to work in demolition or construction or mining or quarrying or whatever it might be. You earn your wages, and you then use those wages to pay your rent, your mortgage, your food bill, your electricity bill, your gas bill, whatever it might be. And so you've got this kind of revolving of money. You get paid, you pay. You get paid, you pay. What happens to that when the workers are not actually human, are not popping to their local shop, are not paying for rent or mortgage because they are a robot? What happens to the wider economy then? That could be an episode all in itself. Our electric revolution is pointless if the Western world keeps importing things from such as China that are still building coal-fired power stations. Have enough coal to keep burning at the current rate for the next 35 years. Plus, they've obviously got a lot more coal than that, and they'll fully intend to use it before going green. It's a fair comment. Best part of sitting with old friends is talking of the past and what we got up to on site. We all loved what we did. It was the life we chose. With mates, friends, and in most cases, we treated each other like brothers. Now we sit and look at what's going on, shake our heads and sip or gulp our beer. We are what we are and what we was. I, for one, am proud of that. Yeah, absolutely. And I do wonder, the point that Jim said earlier about the people with the genuine interest in the job. I'm sure there are jobs and there are people that, you turn up for work, you do your 9 to 5 or whatever it might be, and you pack up and you go home and you don't think about it until the following morning. But working in demolition and construction, mining, quarrying, farming, it's kind of it gets under your skin. Those are the circles you move in. That becomes your topic of conversation. And I just wonder, those people that are working remotely out of choice or out of instruction from their employers post-COVID, I wonder what they get to talk about. I don't want to go back to working in an office. You couldn't pay me enough. But the lack of interaction sometimes is tough. It is tough, which is, I tend to fall back on things like AI. I sit here and chat to an AI. Not that makes me sound like the loneliest man in the world. That's not true. But if I'm trying to flesh out a thought or a notion or an idea for an article or whatever it might be, I do tend to do it with AI. Back in the day, I used to do that with humans. My old business partner, Adrian Barker, was very, very good at listening to me spouting forth about, I've got an idea for an article. And he would sit there, listen very intently, and then say, well, that's bollocks. But if you did this, I don't have that anymore. I genuinely don't have that anymore. Mick Norton, with his finger on the pulse, says, Pan sector, the number of skills vacancies rose from 226,500 in 2027. Hang on a minute, 2027 to more than 500 million in 2022. I don't think 2027 is the number. If you could clarify that at all for us, Mick. Peter McKenna has just joined us. How are you feeling, Peter? Are you at home? Are you in hospital? Are you feeling better? Are you feeling better? Speaking of feeling better, my oldest son, Ollie, who moved out, as I say, maybe 6 weeks ago now, phoned me up yesterday morning and said, I feel terrible. I need to go to the hospital. So I jumped in the car and went and picked him up, took him to the hospital. And his balance was all off. He was literally, dizzy and everything else, was sick and everything else. I said to him, are you sure you haven't got an ear infection? No, I haven't got an ear infection. Can't no ear pain or whatever. Took him to the hospital. The hospital checked him over. Apparently they found traces of blood in his ear. They reckon he dug a little bit too deep with a cotton bud, and it had given him an ear infection, which had screwed up his balance. Be careful out there, people. Be careful out there with cotton buds. So going back to Mick Norton's thing here, Pan sector, the number of skills vacancies rose from 226,500 in 2017, not 2027. So in the space of 5 years, more than doubled. Yeah, that's what we're looking at. Mick Norton says, Starmer's claim to fix the skills message, just waffle, insurmountable problem. And there's a bit of me that wonders now if anybody actually wants to resolve the problem. Despite all the talk of demolition and construction companies claiming that their people are their greatest asset, if you were sat there right now holding the controls of a major construction or demolition company and you were looking at your costs and your additional costs. So let's say you employ 100 people and let's say you pay them all, to make it easy, you pay them all 30 grand a year. So you're paying out 3 million quid in wages. But in amongst all of that, they're taking sick time, holiday time, all paid. They regularly break to have a fag. They go off to the loo. They have maternity and paternity, all of these things, And if you're sat there thinking, well, long term, do I want that? Do I want people that phone in on a Monday morning claiming that they are they've been struck down by some mystery illness when you know full well they were out on the piss over the weekend and they probably just got a hangover, or that decide, actually, I'm going to go and ride my motorbike, go to the horses, go fishing for the day rather than turn up for work? Or would you rather hand the whole lot over to a machine that will never, ever, ever take the piss? Yes, you will have downtime with autonomous machines, but you have downtime with machines now. If you could keep that fleet of autonomous machines going, you need never, ever worry about holiday, paternity, sick time, and all the stuff that goes with it. If I were a cynic, I would guarantee you that there are companies out there right now looking at it going, people, surplus requirements. And frankly, in many instances, they're not wrong. They're really not. Let's have a look. I'm going to attempt to translate this from Jim Turner. I'm a bugger for digging in my tabs with a hair grip. I think that means he scratches inside his ears with a hair grip. There's nothing feels better. Those little, it is a hair grip. I can't think of a better word. A cotton bud is fine. The end of a big pen, that could be quite nice. But a hair grip in your lug hole, but don't dig too deep. If you feel resistance, for the love of Christ, stop. Let's have a look. Mick says, feel quite emotional. Look at my first Matic hanging on the balcony. How many bricks I dug down, standing on a wall 100 feet in the air. No scaffold or harness, just the odd seagull shitting in my head. Fuck, think I need a pint or two of the black stuff. Have one for me, would you? I don't do that anymore, but I did used to like a Guinness. It was a perfect meal replacement at times, that was. Have one for me, would you? Mick Norton says, my late mum said the smallest thing you should put in your ear is your elbow. Yeah, I'm going to struggle with that. But she didn't say that when she whacked you round the ear. Yes, well done, people. Well done. I don't know how we got into digging out your ears, but we did. That'll do us for today, I think. As I say, if you'd like to continue listening to industry-related stuff, just go over to Demolition News on YouTube, or just fire up your podcast player, whatever that might be, and just search for Demolition News Radio. There's loads of new stuff on there. Most of it doesn't actually feature me, which is a recommendation in itself. We have a couple of new presenters who are doing a much better job than I can. What we got? No, that's a double up, I think. Mick says, stay safe, gents. I'm off with the hound. Give the hound my regards. Have a pint of the black stuff for me. And then describe it for me. Kind of miss it. Everybody have a fantastic day. I'll be back tomorrow with more of the same. I say that. It won't be the same. It'll be similar. You know. See you tomorrow. All the best.